G'day everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my first ever tech type video. This is just going to be to show you guys what you have to do before you field your GBBRs. This is a new one, brand new from VFC, the HK416A5, one of the best GBBRs I've ever played with. This one belongs to a mate and he just asked me to take a look at it and make sure everything's good before he fields it. The most important thing with the gas blowback system is that you make sure everything is nice and tight as far as all the screws and making sure that you've got lock bond on everything. Believe it or not, they don't put any lock bond on at the factory. So you can play a couple of games and then your screws start to go loose, your barrel might end up getting wobbly, or all sorts of malfunctions can happen. And because this is a mechanical system, if one thing gets loose on the inside, it can end up breaking a bunch of different components, which ends up being quite expensive. So you're better off just breaking it apart and putting Loctite on everything that turns. If it's a screw, then it should be Loctite. All right, let's start by taking her apart. One thing I'll say while I'm doing this is that if you really want to get into the gas blowbacks, you will have to learn how to maintain them and probably end up fixing them yourself. Because if you were going to send it off to... Because if you were going to send this off for warranty repairs every time something goes wrong with it, you won't have it for most of the time. It's just a sad reality with gas blowbacks. But in my opinion, maintaining them and modifying them is one of the most pleasurable things that comes with owning a gas blowback. It's very simple to take apart, of course, just like the real deal. There are not that many parts. We're going to start here with the lower. One of the screws that tends to get loose really quickly is right under the bolt catch lever here, and it holds the firing pin down. And that is a very bad screw to have come loose because it can make this whole block here wobbly. And this is the part of the lower where the bolt is constantly cycling over. So if something is out of position here, you'll end up breaking, one or multiple of these small components. And these are where most of the little fragile type stuff is. So I'm going to start here. So to get to this, first you'll have to remove the bolt catch lever. So there's just a little pin in there, see, that's holding this bolt catch that you'll have to remove. And underneath that, there's a little spring, which you have to make sure not to lose. It can just fall out. All right, so that comes right off, as you see. And inside there is the spring that you'll have to make sure you don't lose. So just get it out. It's very easy to lose. And I think the first time I took this apart, I did manage to lose it. All right, so once you remove that, you'll see, let me get this in focus, you'll see this screw right here. That is the one that needs to be Loctite. Once you remove this screw, a bunch of stuff might come loose. So you can actually Loctite this without having to reposition all the springs and stuff here by just holding it down, unscrewing it out, get some Loctite on, and then put it back in. And that way you don't have to fiddle with the firing pin and the auto sear. I should also mention, you should make sure to have the right fitting Allen key on these things because they're very easy to thread. So if you put the Allen key in and it feels a little bit loose, just make sure you've got the right size and don't overscrew these. That's what the Loctite is for. And if it feels stuck, just make sure you don't thread this. So I just tried to take this screw out and it is so tight that it literally broke my Allen key. So we're not going to bother with this one because it's sitting pretty firmly. But this is a very important screw and this has to stay tight. So if you get this gun or any of the VFC M4s, the first thing you should do is make sure that this screw is nice and snug. And this one seems to be. So let's just put that back together. It's pretty simple. You just have to get the spring in first. And then your bolt catch lever just slides back in. Make sure that the that the spring is sitting in its position correctly, and then you want to slide the bolt catch on top. There we go. So there you go. You just want to make sure that it's nice and springy. And then we will put back this pin. Okay, so that's back in place. All right, another screw which is really annoying and often falls out is this little grub screw that is on the inside of the fire selector switch, which is holding the fire selector. If you can see the screw that's inside this hole here, where I've got my Allen key, this will come out pretty quickly. And the annoying thing about this screw is that it is actually very tiny. I think it's a 1.5 millimeter, and you don't know, it's actually less. I think it's a 0.9 millimeter Allen key, which is not really common, and took me a while to find this size. And this will come out. You can see there's absolutely no Loctite on this, and the screws just coming straight out. So really important that you Loctite this, because you don't want to lose the selector. It's not necessary to unscrew the thing all the way out, or at least I don't. I should preface by saying this is not scientific. This is just what I've come to with my experience. And then basically you just have to reverse it back in with the Loctite on, and that'll hold it. Bam. As soon as the grub screw disappears, you can stop rotating. So there's one. I'll do the other side as well, because this one's ambidextrous. So that's all done now, both sides. And as far as the lower is concerned, those are the two main issue screws. And so if you've taken care of those two, your lower receiver is basically squared away. All right, let's look at the upper half. We want to take off the handguard and get to the barrel, the outer barrel, and then eventually to the hop up. I'll keep saying this because this is where I got the most amount of pain with my gas blowback experience. Try not to thread anything. It's the biggest pain in the ass to have a small grub screw thread in a place where you can't do anything about it. You can't really Dremel or any. You basically you could have the entire system fail because of one grub screw that's been threaded. So just be really careful with that. I have to remove this zip tie here because it's getting in the way. All right, so this is where the beauty is in the 416A5 from VFC. The hop up. The hop up is adjustable on the fly without any tools, just over here. And it's a really nice design. As you rotate the gas block, what is normally the gas block, you'll have this little, well, I don't know what you would call this long piece of plastic. It will push in or out, and that will increase or decrease your hop. It's a revolutionary design. I'll talk a little bit more about this when I review this system, because this is what makes this system really unique, and I think VFC nailed it with this hop-up design. All right, so to get this off, I'm going to take this out first. Piston, whatever it is, piston, right? Gas piston. And we'll need to remove this thingo. Sorry, I don't know the names for everything. Barrel nut. There's a spring that goes in here, inside this little hole. Just make sure you don't lose that. I almost just did. Yeah, you will need one of these castle nut wrenches, but this is essential for anybody who owns a gas blowback M4. You will need one of these. So it can be a little bit of a bitch to get this off. If so, you will need to place it in a vise and then put the wrench in and then just lightly hammer it until it comes loose. Once it comes loose. Now, these are the really important screws that you cannot lose. These definitely need to be Loctite because these will come loose because most of the recoil is happening in this region. Bolt is basically slamming right here. And once these get lost, the thing is you won't be able to see these because your handguard is on the outside, of course. So you won't see that these are going loose until they just fall out and then your barrel comes loose, which is definitely something you don't want to happen while you're playing. So I'm not going to unscrew all at once. I'm going to do one at a time, Loctite, then put it back in. And I'll say it again, make sure you do not thread anything. So if they feel tight, I wouldn't try to unscrew them too much because you will end up threading them. They will come loose. It's only a matter of time. So you might just have to, if they're feeling really tight, I think VFC have started doing a better job on finishing these things because my screws were all loose as soon as I got them. But these will definitely come loose eventually. So just make sure you check up on them. Make sure that they're tight. I'm talking about these two screws here. So these two here, they hold the hop up and barrel in place. So you can't lose them. There's one on each side. And then you've got two on the bottom, which keep the hop up chamber together here in the silver section. Now they're all looking really tight. Trying to unscrew them and not getting anywhere. So they're looking good. Ah, yeah, I see some red Loctite here. So yeah, I think they finally caught on to this silly error. I won't put any Loctite on the barrel nut. It's not necessary. With a wrench, you can give it a good twist and just hold it in place just by screwing it on really tightly with this wrench. So you'll see there is a grub screw here at the bottom of the flash hider in here. Now, I wouldn't put any Loctite on this, or you could, but if this grub screw gets stuck, it's a pain in the ass to fix. I actually don't even know how to fix it. If you are going to put Loctite because you don't think you're going to be switching this up for a tracer very often, then a little bit of Loctite, not the red one, the blue one, and just finger tight. No need to tighten it too much with some lock bond on there. This is an essential lock bond. You cannot play airsoft without this. This should be in every gas blowback player's kit. And like I said, we're just going to lightly finger tighten this one so it's removable in the future. So as soon as I hit the wall and I feel resistance, I'm just going to stop. All right, so before I start putting everything back together, a couple of other important points. So this is your bolt and this is your loading nozzle, the plastic here. This is the upgraded version from VFC. It's steel reinforced. So you've got steel contact point here, which is making contact with the bolt catch. And this part up here is all steel as well. And so this is a point that used to break on the previous versions, but this newer version bolt is a lot sturdier, and the loading nozzle also has an impasse built in, which allows you to change your FPS. It's something really cool to come stock on a gas blowback. Another reason why I think this one is one of the best on the market right now. So you have 3 screws here. You got 2 grub screws, and then you've got just one regular screw, and these they're pretty solid. I've never had them come loose, but I would just check that they're nice and tight and snug, and if they're not, then take them out and put some lock bond. Because if this thing starts to come loose inside your gun, it can cause all sorts of havoc. All right, let's check it out. Oh, wow. Okay, so one of these grub screws is just totally slid out with almost no pressure put on the Allen key. So that's really bad. This one definitely needs to be Loctite and put back in. When this thing comes loose and starts rattling around while it's cycling, chaos. All right, so a little bit of lock bond and just finger tight, because if your loading nozzle breaks, but you've threaded any one of these screws, you basically need a whole new bolt, which is pretty expensive. I think they're around 80 bucks. So you just want to put a bunch of lock bond and then just get it finger tight, no more than that. Otherwise, you'll thread it when you're trying to get it out, and then yeah, the whole thing will be thrown away instead of the $10 bolt. Sorry, instead of the $10 loading nozzle, which is made of plastic. They tend to break. So yeah, just be careful with those. I'm going to check the second grub screw now, and there you go. It just instantly started turning, which is pretty crazy. And I mean, VFC, they do a lot of things right, but then sometimes you just feel like the last 10%, they've just skipped on that. They've done like all the work in designing a beautiful gun, where the externals are exceptional, and the hop-up system is just amazing compared to all the other gas blowbacks, and even compared to AEG hop-ups. You can actually adjust this hop-up without even bringing your rifle down. Your support hand just moves forward to the gas block, and then you can rotate and adjust, and it's just a breeze. But then they don't tighten the screws on the bolt, which is the thing that is smashing constantly and has like the most vibration. So that kind of stuff just makes absolutely no sense to me. All right, so that's nice and safe now. We'll start putting this back together. It's brand new and it comes a little bit dry, but I'll do a separate video on how to clean and lube these and keep them running well. Yeah. I hate how stiff the takedown pins are. That'll loosen up there. All right, so she's back together now. And yeah, like I said, I'll do a proper review on this specific model. And I will also do a separate video on how to maintain them and make sure they're lubed up properly and good to go. So thanks again, and hope to see you soon.